And welcome to the Daily Space Weather, folks. We are streaming live to Twitch because the platform is so good. We just love it. So that's why we're streaming live. I be your host, El smAsho del Masho Tank, otherwise known as Dan. And we're looking at the sun here at 193 angstroms. There's a small sunspot down in the southeast. It's a cycle 25 sunspot. We see some radio bursts have come out of it. Super exciting stuff. A significant radio burst. Sometimes these type of radio bursts are the predecessor to solar flares. And let's look at another view. Here's the 304 angstrom view, and these are both 48-hour videos, folks. We're going to show you some close-ups of those sunspots in a moment, so stay tuned for that. Lots of stuff to cover today that we are super excited about. And sometimes it's great to be right, folks. Sometimes it's great to be right. You might learn more from being wrong, but sometimes it's great to be right. Here's the magnetogram faded to 304 angstroms. And we're going to show you moving pictures of that magnetogram in a minute. Here's the 171 angstroms view. And here's the black and white magnetogram. And we do see some magnetic mixing on the leading umbra there, the one shown in black. You can see some white fields associated with that also. So perhaps not degrading as much as I thought. Looks like the likelihood for solar flares actually is still going up here, really. And that's a beta class sunspot, so wouldn't be surprised to see the X-ray flux come off of the floor. Haven't seen any flares yet, but we have seen a 245 megahertz radio burst, and that's a big deal. And if you were a patron, or if you were on our Subscribe Star, you would already know this. Anyway, there's the 131 angstroms view. And lastly, here's my personal favorite, the 171 angstroms view. And I'll let that play through a second time before moving on to more stuff, such as the locations of things in the solar system. There's where they are now. And by the way, the worm moon occurs today. There's where things will be in 1 week, as Mercury is working on lapping us. The worm moon happens today at 1:47 p.m. The moon will be 100% full. Here's where stuff is above my head at in-the-sky.org. I've made myself a sky chart. And the moon is setting, and we're going to see a bunch of planets rise a little bit later today. KP index is at 2. And here is this radio burst. It's on spaceweather.com. So that's a significant radio burst, even at time of solar maximum, folks. And that is exciting stuff. So, yeah, more cycle 25 behavior. And if you're wondering when cycle 25 began, it was about when I said it would. I said August of 2019. It'll probably end up being considered to be September, or it may even be before that. But it's really just a question of when you see more cycle 25 activity than cycle 24. And the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is still at 70. So we monitor the 10.7 centimeter radio flux as well as the 245 megahertz radio flux and some other wavelengths that we'll get to in due time. Let's get back to data. X-ray flux is still on the floor. I wouldn't be surprised to see some X-ray flaring today, although that sunspot's pretty small. And good news, the Apatity and Barentsburg neutron monitors are back online. If you want to see an update for the current cosmic ray environment, watch yesterday's space weather video, or click on the network of cosmic ray stations that we always keep below the video in the description section, for your convenience. Next, we'll look at real-time solar wind, which is showing a phi angle of 110 degrees. Solar wind density remains a little bit elevated here at 11.88 protons per cubic centimeter. And the solar wind speed, pretty low here at 335 kilometers a second. There's the data from ACE, and here's the latest update. Next, we'll look at the magnetosphere movies. Here's 4 hours of data, and this should look fairly steady here as we don't see any big shifts. And these models are based on the Space Weather Modeling Framework, courtesy University of Michigan. And since this is not accessible via an archive, we archive at least 4 hours of it daily. And we've also got the ground magnetic perturbations. Keep in mind, new viewers, if you're not aware, we have 2 North Poles, one over northern Canada, one over Siberia, and the South Pole creeping towards southwestern Australia. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance and the Pole Excursion. Magnetometer is still looking spiky. It's the GOES magnetometer, and we see these things crossing, indicating disparities between the fields detected by the two craft. And if you're wondering what the N's and M's stand for, these N's and M's right here, that is noon and midnight local time for the satellites. This is going to continue to look spiky here, and that sunspot is moving into the Earth-facing zone. So let's look at the Gong 2 data. There is the magnetic information based on 51 ground-based magnetometers as well as one on stereo A, which is over here. It stands for ahead. And stereo B is over here, which stands for behind. As stereo A sees space weather yet to happen, and stereo B sees space weather after it's happened, talking about from the earthly perspective. And we're going to continue to see spikiness in the GOES magnetometer here as that sunspot moves into the Earth-facing zone. And we're going to see some more direct field force lines, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the North Pole magnetism peek through, which will show up in green. Currently the whole current sheet in red, South Pole polarity. Here's the line of sight field plot, which shows the B field. The last one was the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And not a lot of big effects yet coming out of that sunspot on the B field, which is kind of surprising. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the day. Electron flux is quite low, including the greater than 2 mega electron volts. There are at least the GOES 15 data. GOES 14 not showing up right now. And the total electron forecast is looking pretty low also. And if you're wondering what effect that has, it's GPS errors mainly. It can also be used to figure out satellite charging hazards. I'll let that play through. Before we move on to more stuff, and there is some exciting stuff that we're going to touch on briefly in the daily space weather video. We'll have to make a highlight of it, which we'll release later, and we'll have to do another entire video just about what we're going to be talking about, because it's a very interesting full circle. Anyway, here's 6 hours of the ionosphere. And that's looking pretty normal. There's the latest image at 7:30 UT. By the way, if you enjoy the content on YouTube, please press like and subscribe and visit our links. Thanks to our patrons, the real source of funding for these videos. And consider joining Subscribestar also. The tier there is different. We have 2 tiers at Patreon. They're $1 and $9.99 a month. On Subscribestar, there's only one tier, and it's $3 a month. And we will be putting exclusive content on all 3 of those tiers eventually. Also, please follow us on BitChute as we put exclusive videos there. We're pretty much forced to, and we welcome it because we're getting a lot more views there, over 2 and 3 times more views than we get on YouTube. Also, check us out on Alt Tech, We're all over Twitter, Facebook, Gab, Minds, etc. Minds.com, the social media that won't censor you and won't shadow ban you and won't do all kinds of stupid things that you don't want it doing. Next, we'll look at the windy.com pressure maps, and we're going to let this advance via the GFS forecast. And we will pause the video at about noontime tomorrow. There's where the GFS forecast anticipates pressure cells being tomorrow at noon my time. And if you're wondering where I'm located, it's in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Next, we'll look at the earthquake map, and California has been seeing some quakes, including a 5.9 magnitude off of Petrolia, California. It's about 70 miles out in the ocean, I believe, is the distance. And we'll get to it in a minute. First, we're going to do the 24-hour rundown. We see a deep quake at Tonga. So it looks like a little uptick in earthquake activity here, folks, following yesterday's series of deep quakes. So there's a 4.8 at depth. We're still seeing a 6 and 7 magnitude earthquake drought, so if you're in a prone area, please have a plan if stuff goes down. And when I say stuff goes down, I mean literally if you're going to evacuate the building you're in, have an idea which building facades may crumble. Some deep quakes striking Alaska. There's a 3.1 magnitude quake at 225 kilometers. There's an extreme deep quake at Fiji, a 4.4 magnitude at 560 kilometers. Another extreme depth quake at Fiji at 4.4 magnitude, 538 kilometers. A 4.5 strikes right on the island of New Zealand at depth. Check that one out. Time to take a look at this. And it's nowhere near the Topo volcano. Not the Topo volcano. What's that volcano called? I can't remember. Anyway, there's a volcano on the central island, and this is nowhere near it. But that is an extreme depth quake, so that's pretty odd. Please leave a comment if you're from New Zealand and you know who Eddie Dawkins is. Eddie, if you're watching the video, keep them tires on the pavement. And also another deep quake in the deep quake capital of the world at Fiji, a 4.5 magnitude at 544 kilometers. Here's a quake at Romania. Dracula, please leave a comment if you felt that quake. It's a 4.3 magnitude at 134 kilometers. So big time deep earthquake event going on, folks. Just scrolling up the list here to get to this. Oh, it's been downgraded to a 5.8 now. It was a 5.9 earlier. Now it's a 5.8. Off the coast of Petrolia, California. We're actually going to look at this location here, even though it's not a 6. There's a location of that. And it looks like it's about 70 miles offshore. Another deep quake at Fiji. 581 kilometers at a 4.1 magnitude. Here's a deep quake at Bolivia. So extreme deep quake event, folks, all around the whole world. And here's another ultra weird quake. This one happening in thin air, apparently. Now, how a quake can happen at 300 meters above the ocean, I don't know, but there's the data. Maybe there's an invisible volcano out there in the ocean, who knows? Please don't crash your boat into an invisible volcano. So yeah, if you're in an earthquake-prone zone, be prepared, as we are having a drought, and earthquake droughts end in earthquakes. And we've graduated to the, oh my God! Oh my God! Section of the video where I talk about the smAsho forum, and I am in utter amazement today. So thanks, Be Stoic, for putting up this incredible article here, another AndrewCollins.com article. And dude, this is getting freaky. I cannot believe all this talk about Cygnus and X3 and denim has brought me full circle to Herouni. I mean, what are the chances that the same person who built the antenna that can disprove the Big Bang, cosmic microwave background, which Robitaille is trying to get back to operational status because it's the least noisy radio antenna on Earth, is the guy proving the ancient monolithic sites point to Deneb? Dude, crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Apparently this Armenian 7,500-year-old monolithic site has a bunch of soul holes in the stars. I mean, in the monoliths, just like at Göbekli Tepe. And guess where they're oriented? To Deneb. Yep. So anyway, that's all on smashomash.com/forum. There's an entire thread in the cosmology forum specifically about Cygnus X3 massive X-ray binary celestial pole star Deneb, also a cosmic ray point source, one of the only known cosmic ray point sources. I was so excited that I had to include an image of this blue beauty, and there it is. Deneb, which is a massive X-ray binary. And if that doesn't have you saying, "Oh my God," I don't know what does. So check out smashomash.org. We've got some links there, as well as links to the Smashomash forum. Smashomash.com/forum. You can just go directly if you like. We've got a massive section on COVID-19, aka coronavirus. So perhaps have a read about that. And is the coronavirus the catalyst for system failure? Well, I think people are overreacting to it. And I think we're going to find out that the actual fatality rate is possibly less than the seasonal flu. Who knows? But in any case, it's damaging economies all around the world. It's causing inflation as central banks pump money into the bubble economies that are overly inflated by the cheap money. And all of this stuff hurts the poor more than anybody else. So central banking is once again the culprit. Central banking creates the boom and bust cycles 100%. And central banking shouldn't be a thing, as banks should not be able to artificially adjust interest rates. Interest rates should be determined by the free market, not by this socialist government nonsensical hybrid system of crap. The idea that 2% inflation is better than 1% inflation and 1% inflation is better than 0% inflation is total nonsense. So look for oil prices to absolutely crater and possibly going all the way down to $20 a barrel. So a lot of poor in the U.S. are going to like that, as they're going to be able to fill up their gas tanks cheaply. But equity markets are getting hammered, and you don't want to know what's going to happen today. Dow futures point to an opening of 1,300 points dropped. So that could be the worst open in history. And by the way, people are not finding safe havens in Bitcoin. I've said it the whole time that I don't consider Bitcoin a real store of value. And apparently, institutional investors agree. Or maybe it's just a bunch of kids living in their mom's basements, selling all their crypto. Maybe it's the reverse wealth effect. Are you familiar with the reverse wealth effect? We're also going to look at Ethereum on the Coinbase exchange. There's Ethereum, which actually looks better than Bitcoin right now. And I've always thought it looks better than Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin is utterly overvalued. So let's check gold and silver prices, as it's going to be one of the only relevant factors. So there's gold. And that dip must have made a lot of people a lot of money, because look where it is now. Let's look at the all data chart. And it's approaching the all-time highs. Peter Schiff would have told you so. And I hope you listen to Peter Schiff, as the guy knows what he's talking about. Here's silver. And if that's not a buying signal for silver, I don't know what is, folks. Check it out. There's the 1-year chart. Here's the all data chart. And keep in mind, silver was at nearly $50 an ounce at the last economic downturn. So, yeah. Oil prices are going to be in the news, as well as this incredibly bad opening. And we see Treasury yields plummeting, and that is because of investors trying to find safety in U.S. Treasury bonds. So that's an indication that the dollar is strong. Fundamental companies, stocks are just fine. And I think all of this nonsense about coronavirus is not worthy of crashing the stock market. Anyway, it's doing so. And I believe that watching any disease vector which has a high communicability could cause a panic just like this one. In other words, if we decided to pick a strain of influenza and follow that in this much detail, the map would probably look the same. And I would note that orange line and that yellow line are leveling out. So, I don't know. It seems like much ado about nothing, but we're going to keep covering it as long as it's relevant. 110,041 confirmed cases, total deaths at 3825, total recovered 62,000. Next, we're going to look at volcanoes, which, by the way, do have an effect on human health. The sulfur that comes out of them is actually good for you. Were you aware of that? It's also good for plants. And, yeah. So, let's go down the list. Kluchevskoy is still exploding, producing a 23,000-foot ash plume. Mount Aso, flight level 6,000 there. Dakono, flight level 6,000 there as it explodes. Popocatépetl also exploding, 20,000-foot plume there. Sangay, 21,000-foot explosive ash plume there. And Sabancaya, while we're unable to detect it, please do not attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera at Sabancaya. Now, we saw some pretty violent lightning happening on Cyprus. And right there, one just came in right as I clicked on it. This is lightningmaps.org, by the way. And check it out. Those 4 bolts all struck at the same time. And I don't know if you're aware, March is the best month to see sprites. So perhaps check out lightningmaps.org the next time you hear thunder, as it might save your you-know-what. And better yet, you can freak your friends out by forecasting thunder. Shout out to Monmouth and Burlington and Mount Pleasant and Keosauqua and Fort Madison. There's thunder rolling in. Also at Galesburg. Here's the U.S. Doppler radar map. It looks like some good skiing conditions up there in northern Maine. And I haven't hit the slopes in I don't know how long, way too long. Next, we're going to look at the Null School map, and maybe this one will have you saying, "Oh my God!" Now, there was a story a few days ago about how China has stopped producing. They've shut down all their factories. Well, I debunked that in about 5 seconds, within 10 hours of the story breaking. My mom called me like 2 days later and told me about this, and I said, "No, that's fake news. There's sulfur dioxide. Here's carbon monoxide. An indication that China has not shut down its manufacturing. So, I don't know what to tell you. There's the truth. Stop believing lies. And stop believing fear-mongering nonsense on the internet." Here's the eastern jet streams, which we look at daily. And they are all over the place, dudes. Check it out. Look at the extreme meridional jet stream flow there. Jeez. Jeez-o whiz. It makes you look at the map and say, "Oh my God!" Please leave a comment if you know who Gond is. Gond. It's G-O-N-D. Gond. Look it up. It's a real deity. It's a real fake deity. All right, and here are the water vapor maps for Africa and Europe. Here are the water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Shout out to Kimberly. That dry air is just lingering there for a week. And here is the U.S. water vapor map, the source of our daily weather pornography. And we're going to look at Florida today for once. Shout out to Mothra. Mothra located in Oviedo, Florida. If you see it fly over the building, don't try to shoot it down. Mothra will take you out. It'll take you out. Perhaps for a Vietnamese meal. Anyway, there are our daily Hall currents, which you can see water lined up in these parallel lines here, perpendicular to its motion. That's because the Hall effect is a real thing in the atmosphere, unlike chemtrails, which are a fake thing in people's imagination. And hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in to the Smash stream, or if you viewed it later on YouTube or perhaps on BitChute. Thanks, regardless. Please leave a comment. Here are the bonus features. It's a close-up of the intensity gram of Sunspot, I believe it's 2758. And where to go. What is going on with that? There it is. I think I might be zoomed in too far. What do you think? Anyway, there's the current state of affairs, and it looks like it's degrading to me. I don't know. It doesn't look as dark as it did yesterday. I think that thing's breaking down. Here's a colorized magnetogram. And it is indeed cycle 25 polarity, if you were wondering. I think that's degrading. That's my official guess. And let's look at one, a more, a bonus, a feature. It's the 48 angstroms view. As it is time to bolt. Don't forget to stare at the sun. Use the proper instruments like the SDO. Perhaps it'll give you informed information about it, like the fact that stars aren't electric, fundamentally. And thank goodness for that, because you'd be dead, very, very dead, and they'd be extremely, extremely unstable if they were electric. When you are staring at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar win.